Hi friend. It's so nice to see you again. Whether it's our first time hanging out, I'm so thrilled to have you here on this journey and part of this community. We live in a time where queer voices are being silenced. As your cis femme lesbian sister who's been chronically alone in her life, I find it really important for our voices to be heard. I've asked some of you to share your stories and send it to my email. If you'd like for your queer voice to be heard, please send it to me and I'd love to share it anonymously. I find it really important for us to connect and help each other resonate and support each other. I encourage you to engage with each other and let's get deep, let's get vulnerable, get cozy, grab a snack, and let's get started. My life story. I was adopted in 1987, just months after being born, which was probably a good thing because at the time, as I'll read through, it definitely wasn't a great thing. I spent my first 6 to 8 months of my life after being adopted living in Hawaii, just out of the town of, I can't pronounce that to be exact. I've been back many times and I've always had this special tie to Hawaii because of this. Yes, this actually ties in later in the story. At just short of 1 year old, we moved to Santa Rosa, California. The move was prompted because of the lack of good education on the island, and my adoptive parents wanted to make sure that I had access to the best education available. So in my early life, I don't remember much, but we will fast forward to my earliest memories about 3, almost 4 years old, Pearl Harbor Day to be exact. I was born in February. There I was, standing in the hospital, bored out of my mind. We had driven from Santa Rosa down to Southern California. I had just outside of Palm Springs in a little town which I cannot remember the name of. We were waiting for my adopted sister to be born, and that's all I really remember from my earliest memories. Fast forward to first grade, I had trouble understanding why girls never wanted to play with me. I wanted so bad to be included in their group. I never understood why I couldn't be. I didn't like boys besides 1 or 2 of them, and I thought the sportier girls and I were the same. The boys would always say, you run like a girl, you throw a ball like a girl, you XXX like a girl. But because of the time and the era, I was still considered to be a boy, and so that's what I thought I would always be. Then again, I didn't know being trans was even an option. I didn't know people could be different. I wanted to wear the clothes my fellow girls wore. I wanted the long hair, I wanted their life, and I wanted to look just like them. That was probably the first time I had to push down who I knew I was, who I knew I should be. So I did. I toughened up. I forced myself to be more of a boy, all while I knew deep down it wasn't right. I didn't like doing the boy things. I didn't like having to act like I wanted nothing to do with girls, because I was one, just didn't know how to express it. For the next few years, things continued on. I did everything I could to be a boy, to not have any girly things happen, all the while I was being tortured. Not that my adopted parents knew. Having to watch my adopted sister grow up and get treated that way, I knew I should be as well. She was a whole other story. She had a lot of issues and ended up being on multiple segments, thanks to her birth mom being a drug addict. I digress. I was forced to be a boy growing up because we didn't have the visibility we do today. I didn't have access to the language that I needed to be able to tell my adoptive parents that I wasn't a boy, and it ate at me. 10 years old, we moved into a new house in the same city, and here's where things really start to come into focus looking back at it. It was the house where Snoopy was first illustrated. Anyway, I remember thinking to myself one day, standing in front of the mirror, what if I didn't have this male part below? I tucked for the first time. Not in a playful, oh look at me, I'm a girl, but a deeper urge to not have that and to see that I didn't. And I remember it felt right. It felt like that's how things should have been. I remember bending over and seeing the perineum for the first time and thinking, oh my god, did they change me from a girl to a boy? What the literal is this? Okay, I didn't cuss, but I didn't know how else to express my emotion. I didn't say anything to anyone, not even my adopted parents. But I carried that my whole life. I remember sneaking to my parents' closet just to touch my mom's clothes that were hanging on the rack, thinking to myself, I love the way they feel. And then I'd switch to my dad's side and thinking, well, I guess this is what's mine and what it will always feel like. Every time I did it, I felt like I died a little inside until one day I just stopped doing it. For the second time, I pushed down who I knew I was supposed to be, who I was inside. 14 years old, I met a girl and she and I started dating. I was in 8th grade, she was in 9th. I went to a private school, she went to public. I'll be honest, looking back, I was jealous of that too. Anyway, she did something no one else had. She gave me a manicure and a facial. It was the first time I could express my femininity and not have a negative experience. It only happened once and it still lives in my mind today. That was the 3rd time I had to hide. 15, she and I broken up because of my stupidity. And now I hung out with the old group, the goths, the stoners, and all those who most people didn't want to have anything to do. I'll never forget, insert friend's name, saying, hey, let me put eyeliner on you, and me saying, hell yeah. And so began the next years of my life. Like Saber says, it was basically encrusted in my DNA by then. I remember my adopted mother asking once, why are you wearing eyeliner? And I remember remember my reply like it was yesterday because it brings out my eyes. It was the first thing I could think of, but I wish I had said something more like, because it feels right to me. It feels like what I should be doing. I know I'm seen as a boy, but I don't feel like a boy. Deep down, I know I'm a girl. Please, I need your help. But I didn't trust my adopted mother to really open up. While still hiding myself for the fourth time, the line was starting to blur. From 15 to 17 is kind of a blur. To be honest, I drank a lot. I did drugs a lot. Not because I wanted to be the cool kid, but because I was trying to silence something that had been awoken. A voice, not literal, more of a feeling, that was always screaming I wasn't doing what I should have been, that I was living a lie. At 16, I got sober. I stopped everything except for nicotine and went to therapy. I saw a woman named Gay. I know. Anyway, Gay asked me something that I'll never be able to unhear myself. She asked me, why do you feel like you need to use drugs and alcohol? Being I knew it was a safe space and trying not to just use surface level language, I said, because I don't feel comfortable in my own skin. I was just doing what I could to not feel this way anymore. That should have been a huge blue, pink, and white striped flag, but it wasn't really common, even then, so I ignored it, and once again, for the fifth time in my life, I pushed it down. Who I was 16 years old, now sober, I went and joined a school club. Which, you might ask? Was it the chess club? The theater club? Maybe it was the math club, the science club? No, it wasn't any of those. It was the gay straight along club. At the time, I identified as bi because being a lesbian didn't make sense, and it allowed me to be more expressive without judgment. I fought hard in the club for anyone under the pride flag. Little did I know I actually would be flying that flag later in my. We're going to pass over the age of 17 because I'm still processing everything that happened. Let's jump to 18. 18 years old, I got my first apartment after being homeless. I got the opportunity to get a car for free and I took it. All I needed to do was go help take care of an old man in Washington State. Okay, cool, not a big deal, except it was a big deal. Girl, when I tell you it was the most scary, eye-opening experience of my life, I'm not even kidding. It only lasted a few weeks. I ended up selling everything I could to get gas money to come back down to the city I knew. In short, he wasn't some sweet old man who wanted to spoil someone and be a grandfather. No, he was a perverted pedophile who thought it was okay for a 12-year-old girl to service him because she wanted to do it. Yeah, I couldn't get out of there fast enough. It's okay. He ended up burning his trailer down and he passed from cancer a few years later, so karma got him. Anyway, I got back and now I was homeless again, but at least I had a car and I could work. That part is important for later. I started to search out my birth family. I needed answers. I needed to know where I came from. I needed to know who I was. I thought finding my bio family would give me answers. Wow, was I wrong. Anyway, I found my brothers first. He was living in Kentucky. As it turns out, he was adopted as well. Both of our adopted parents tried to use a private investigator to locate our mom, but that wasn't happening. So he and I, in cooperation with each other for 1 hour a day, literally library computer time, scour the internet in search of someone who we assumed didn't want to be found. And that was what made the difference. One day we were able to locate, rather I located, her number and current address. I gave the information to my older brother because I was broke and homeless, asked him to make calls. He did, and the response was nothing that we could have imagined. Apparently, our mom had been looking for us too, since the day I turned 18. She invited us both out to visit and meet our family. So we flew out to meet her. We found out that there are a total of 6 of us. I have an older sister who is severely mentally disabled, and an older brother who is now completely MIA. My big brother, who I talk to when he feels like it, me, my little, rather younger brother, and my little sister. She and I formed a deep connection really quickly, and it has never died. She's the only family member who actually knows about me. She loves having a sister. No one else in my family knows. 19 years old, I fell for a girl who I was just supposed to be pretending with. We ended up getting married. I was constantly stealing her sports bras to wear for a few minutes because I found I was calm when I put them on. By the way, I still didn't even know who I was. I was with her till just before I turned 21, and it was the worst couple years of my life. Without getting into it too much, I allowed myself to be a victim of DV because I slipped into the victim mentality. Moving on. 21, standing on my own 2 feet, I had my second apartment, a really cool car, and a job. I was single and going through my phase. Guys, girls, it didn't matter. Then one day, I had a lesbian from, I can't say that, 60 miles north of where I lived, invite me up for a night of fun. I accepted, and it turned into me moving there for a short amount of time. While I lived there, she told me she had been transitioning to male but decided to stop, and I was floored. Not because I'd slept with a man with a womb, but because I didn't even know this was a thing. This was, thinking back on it, the initial egg cracking moment. The one point that I can pinpoint when I became aware. Now knowing there's a level of normalcy to what I'd been feeling, and I kept quiet. I didn't want her, because that's what she preferred was she, her, to think that I was trying to copy or imitate her or whatever. We parted ways and I was once again homeless. I found a room for rent and my adoptive parents helped me pay rent till I could get a job. One day, sitting on the couch, scrolling through YouTube, I came across a video. It was of a trans woman who did everything she could to be a man. She was into working out, big trucks, guns, all the manly things. By the end of the video, I was crying uncontrollably. Not because it was a touching story filled with self-discovery satisfying realization because I saw myself in her. I saw what I was doing, where I was heading. I knew I was following the same path. I owned those things and tried working out to be a macho dude. I explored it for a bit, but for the first time in my life, I felt like I was on the right track. I wasn't ready to fulfill my dreams. I ended up meeting my wife, who doesn't accept me, and for the 5th time, I suppressed who I was. 22 years old, after I'd been with her for a while and started to feel safe, I decided to come out to her. It didn't go well. I didn't have the language I needed to express who I am today and why. Of course, her first question was, "Are you going to cut off the organ below?" Honestly, the whole thing was a bit traumatic. But to her credit, after she tried that for a short while, she eventually told me she couldn't do it. I needed to decide which way to go. So I suppressed myself for the 6th time. 24 years old, well, I had tried again and again to suppress myself. And when I became a truck driver and was left alone with my thoughts, I realized I couldn't suppress myself anymore. I went to Walmarts across the country and bought women's pants. I bought underwear, bras, and started transitioning slowly. At the time, I had settled on the name X. I will insert your name for privacy. I went to Janet's Closet, and a friend of mine in Michigan who took me encouraged me to be me, even paid for the whole shopping trip there. I felt safe for the first time ever being me. Even went to a bar, got drinks and everything. We both got hit on by a lesbian. It was so affirming. 26 years old, I finished my 2 years over the road and returned to permanent reality of not being able to be me. And for the 7th time, I suppressed who I was. Returned to home life, worked a normal job, and was a man, except for my hair. 28 years old, my eldest son was on the way. You would think it was a joyous time, that I would have felt like a proud father, but I didn't. Every time someone would say dad, it was like having a needle plunge into my chest. Eventually, it became callous. I stopped feeling the pain of it. Don't confuse that with me not loving my eldest child. It just hurt because I couldn't be called mom, and I continued to suppress it. 32 years old, I couldn't take it anymore. I talked to my doctor. He accepted me point blank, set me up with a psych appointment, and they set me up with an endo. I started HRT for the first time. I kept it quiet and didn't say anything to anyone, just started taking the medication. Then someone stole my bag that had medication in it. I felt like it was a sign from above for me to not continue, so I suppressed. 33 years old, my middle son was born. The callus was still there from 4-ish years earlier, and still, it wasn't a joyous experience. That was stolen from me, and I knew I wouldn't be able to experience it. I continued to suppress. Somewhere in this time frame, I did buy things from Janet's Closet again. I had them shipped to a friend locally and kept them hidden. 35 years old, I started my own company and started driving again. Within a year, I began to start needing to be myself yet again. All the clothes, all the things, no HRT though yet. I also changed what I wanted to be called from X to X. I won't insert your name just for privacy reasons. 2023, my daughter was born. Again, I wasn't a proud father. The callus was still there and there was nothing I could do about it. I talked to my doctor again and explained what I needed, and I wanted to get back on HRT. This time I had shots, and it only took 1 dose before I told my wife we were moving. I immediately suppressed who I was for the 8th time. We were moving from safe California to Tennessee, who had just passed the anti-drag laws. So I cut my hair, took off my nails, and stopped my medication, and we moved. End of 2024, beginning of 2025, I snapped. I couldn't continue living how I was. I searched out a doctor that could help me. I made my appointment and went and had my labs, all the things they required. I started taking HRT once again on January 28th, 2025, and I have been hiding it, knowing what is likely to happen, and I'm not sure if I'm ready for it. Today, I'm 38. I've been consistently taking HRT for the last 9 to 10 months. I've never been more at peace with who I am. I'm getting close to coming out to my wife, but I need to know for sure if this is really what I want. I've been talking with someone who is helping me mentally, and I'm making my way towards being out. I have a feeling I know exactly what will happen. I also know I cannot go back to hiding. I cannot suppress myself again for the 9th time. I am X, insert name. I know that to my core, I'm not girly. I'm just me. I don't care about what I have below the belt, and I know I can live with it. I'm on estrogen, progesterone, and of course, Spyro. I have never felt so normal in my body before. What boggles my mind is that she hasn't noticed or asked me about why I'm physically changing. When I pass my 1 year is when I'll tell her, probably on my birthday. That way I don't ruin any of her things if she decides to go sideways with it. Thank you for wanting to know more. I'm happy to share my story with anyone who wants to know. My friend, thank you so much for sharing your story with me. It was so powerful, and I'm so proud of you for getting to where you are today. I look forward to the day that you are able to come out and live freely. You deserve that. I always tell you, you are so beautiful. You are so worthy. I'm thankful to call you my friend. If there's anyone else that this resonates with, please share your thoughts and share your experiences. Let's connect and support each other. Before we wrap up our hangout, I want to remind you that you are so important and valid where you are in your journey in the community. I am thankful to call you a sister. Feel free to click to join our community. I look forward to hanging out next time. Bye!